broken down by those individuals, but only about 37 to 38% of the recommendations of here at Hines are marked as complete. You update us or tell us where we are and what's going on.
Okay, and so that's a very, very great question. So within that report, you have a percentage of 44% that is actually implemented. Then you have another percentage, roughly 34, that is in progress. And so with those two combined, you're roughly at 84, 85%, and then we're moving in that direction. So what we're doing is all of those findings that they have in the Hilliard-Hines, we're working aggressively towards those. But let me also too say this, and my team is here. Things that came out of the Hilliard-Hines report, we were already doing and fixing and making those adjustments. And so we were aggressively tackling that report, but looking at it for what it is and actually moving in direction. So if you heard Deputy Chief Paul Humphrey with our policies, that's part of the Hilliard-Hines, reviewing and making sure that we're monitoring that. Can our dashboards be better? Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're going to see us as a department making sure that even on our website and on our platforms that it is more robust so that you are able to go there and retrieve the information that you want to see. I want you to be able to go there. We're teaching and we're telling our department, again, we want to be open because if we're doing it the right way, guess what? We don't have anything to hide. Period. And we're telling our recruits that. And I even tell my command staff, they are here. I say that because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the citizens understand their rights, they understand what we're doing, and you understand why we're doing it and how we're doing it. But in anything that we do, we can always do it better. And so you're going to be seeing us really aggressively move in that direction.
You know, I hear what you're saying, but the previous mayor and your previous predecessor took a victory lap in November and December going around the community talking about these things that they've done, these things that they've completed. And when you look at that scorecard, it raises a question of whether or not that's reality.
Come on, Deputy Chief Paul.
So, Mr. Burris, one of the things I'll say about that is that I think we have made a ton of progress in that area. So I wouldn't say that the last chief or the last mayor were wrong in saying that we've made progress. But what I will also say is that what we don't want is we don't want checkbox progress. We're not here just to fill out a Hilliard-Hines report. Okay, so we've been very intentional and moving very deliberately in the structures that we build because we want the changes that we make to be sustainable. I think we've all seen and we've all complained about changes that have been made in the past that have been touted as being these amazing changes, but really what they were is we said transparency and we said accountability. And we didn't have the support system to keep that as a structure ongoing. And so we have been very deliberate about making sure that as we build out new systems, they're well researched and then they're supported to be sustainable in the future. So for instance, in the area of transparency, what I did not want to do as we start to do all these audits and changing some of these things is just put out data that was useless to the public, right? So we're in the process of looking at our IT department and saying, do we need to just hire more people or do we need to completely restructure our IT department in order to produce this data the way that we want to so it's actually usable by the public? I can give you all the data in the world and a long list of traffic stop by report, by this, by that, but that doesn't do you any good to understand what's actually going on. So we've talked to agencies from all over the country, from Seattle to Nashville to Baltimore to DC, and looked at the way that they produce their data, the way that they do their transparency to make sure that we are doing it in a way that people understand that it's actually usable for you to see what we're doing, instead of just giving you this information that's not really useful. If that makes sense.
It does. You know, one of the things that this organization was all in favor of, and that was a civilian review board with subpoena powers. We didn't get that, but what we ended up was an inspector general. So a few weeks back, there was a question in these articles in the Courier relating to whether or not LMPD was responding to the request for various information that the inspector general was asking for and requested. Where does that stand and what has changed, if anything has changed since those reports?
Yeah, so we're in the process of finalizing an MOU as far as with LMPD and the IG. And I want to put this out here. We've had some great, robust discussions as to what that MOU should look like. And now we're at a place where we know that both parties will be able to come together and have that signed and actually finalized. So that's a good place that we're in right now. And so at the end of the day, LMPD wants to be fully and has been fully cooperative in that space and working with the IG. But we have to make sure that we had some things in place that we can follow and make sure that there was no mishandling of anything when we're dealing with any investigations. But I'm happy to say that we do have something that I'm hoping that we can get finalized for you.
How soon?
Oh, I'm thinking over real soon, real soon. But it's really good. And so we've had great discussions coming together to get to this point. And I will say this: when I took over this role, my second week as being interim chief, I called for a meeting. So I called for a meeting so that we can all come together. And the individuals that you see here today was in that meeting with the IG to say, hey, where can we go? How can we get to a place to move forward?
Okay. You know, over the years, we've made many requests, particularly after March of 2020, in terms of data regarding the composition of the LMPD at certain points in time, number of African Americans there and all of that. And we have been basically stiff arm or slow roll in terms of getting that data and information. If we send a request in directly to you tomorrow, can we get that information?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What time are you going to send it in to me?
I may hand deliver it to you.
Okay, all right. If they come with lunch, you're going to hand deliver it?
And I guess my last question is, you know, in the African American community, as you know, there is a trust issue as it relates to LMPD. You know, there have been complaints over the years. We've been part of the parties that have been complaining in terms of things that have gone on. There was, I guess, news reports a couple of months ago about an African American officer who talked to Joe Girth of the Courier and shared information regarding racism within LMPD. As a result of that, that individual was, I guess, getting a written reprimand, placed in his file, suspended for days. And we find, at least I do, that is being totally counterproductive to what you're trying to deal in terms of where we have held off on sending a letter, even though we had one drafted, to you and to the new mayor, requesting that all those actions be rescinded and that individual be restored to his rightful position and his money back. What's your reaction?
Well, that was pre-me, as you know.
I know it was pre-me.
All right, pre-me. In that particular investigation, it yielded some policy infractions. So I'll leave that right there. And we can have a discussion further about that situation. But let me speak to where we are right now as far as building community trust. We are very intentional and thoughtful as it stands today, and I'm proud to say that how we are trying to go about being more accessible and actually engaging the community in a better way. Case in point, we have the Youth Advisory Council where we meet twice a month. And these are youth from various community centers coming together that are actually engaging with me and the officers that you see here today and other officers within this great city, and actually having transparent, courageous conversations. And they're actually saying what they're seeing in school, what is happening at home, and we're building that trust. I actually started, with the officer that you're making reference to, and also with another officer. And I have those two officers, they're actually leading conversations and cuts, where we're going to the barbershops. And we're actually having those conversations and hopefully get into the beauty salon. We're actually going into the community and say, here we are. What are your needs? What do you see? How can we address them? And it has been rewarding. It has been rewarding with that very same officer in which you're mentioning that I'm using now to actually go into the community to actually help foster and build these relationships. But also too, it goes a little bit deeper. what are our officers doing on a regular basis? And I'm getting those emails, I'm getting those text messages, I've seen the officer, and I had this great interaction. But for me, I am actually trying to develop these different forms and different platforms, community comps that we have, the community come in and actually have these conversations, and we keep moving. All of our officers now, through Truth and Transformation, I'm happy to say, close to 900 of my team have been trained in dealing with procedural justice as it relates to the trauma of the community and the trauma that even they have experienced. So that's how we're doing better and being more intentional by getting into the community and engaging more, and hopefully it'll yield us a little bit more better relationships along the way. So that's how we're building that. But also too, the internal, addressing if we're having some issues that are causing some racial divide, even in our own house. I'm a believer. Sometimes you gotta heal internally before you're able to even heal on the outside. And so that's what we're doing as well.
Along those same lines, this is my last question, because it gives my estimate. I think the first time I met you was when school board members, the chief at that time, FBI, ATF all met regarding the relationship between LMPD and JCPS and how you improve it in terms of, you know, from the outside looking in, that has always appeared since those comments as sort of a tense relationship in terms of where is LMPD with JCPS now?
It's a better working relationship, actually. So my Homeland Security team, they're working very closely with their public safety team that they have on a regular basis, sharing intelligence, actually providing some training, some interactions. I actually hosted a lunch and training session with the safety administrators of JCPS, along with Homeland Security, to work out some of the protocols and mechanisms. So it is much better. JCPS is also too embedded within our community shooting review as it relates to GBI. We meet with them and they're embedded weekly basis in having those robust conversations. So it is a better relationship, because we do also to understand that JCPS students are our community students, right? And so that all goes hand in hand, and we, LMPD, views those students as our children. And so again, the cohesiveness is coming along, and so I'm happy to say that we do have a better working relationship.
I still want the officer to get money back.
Chief, since Memphis,
Yes.
the national civil rights organizations, the NAACP included, are now advocating for federal legislation for police accountability. The bills were introduced last session, did not pass. They will be introduced very shortly. Where would you stand in terms of legislation, either on the state level or the national level, for accountability?
So with that, that is one of those, I don't want to give you any kind of a cookie cutter response. Let me say this, whether it's state or federal, what are we doing to make sure that we're being held accountable every day? How are we training? How am I holding my officer accountable for their missteps, if there aren't any? That's what you need to be saying. So we need to be checking ourselves every day as to how we are policing or interacting with you. And so that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying from LMPD, that we are taking note as to what infractions that we are experiencing or we have, and to make sure that we're doing better. Since Memphis, and that incident, that unfortunate incident, prior to that, we have been doing what we need to do as far as engaging the community, dealing with this violent crime, but we've been doing it the right way. But guess what? We're making sure that we are on top of our training, and that we have proper supervision, and that we are engaged as into what our officers are doing daily. So that's where it is. And let me say this, whether there's federal oversight, state oversight, it should not make a difference, because we should be doing what we need to do to hold ourselves accountable regardless of that. And so that's what we are, and that's what I'm committed to doing, even with the DOJ. Whether the DOJ was here or not, you deserve a quality police department. You require that, and we should be able to deliver that to you.
Mr. Fields.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Chief, thank you for being here. Deputy Chief and all your colleagues, thank you for being here. I'm Kevin Fields. I'm President and CEO at Louisville Central Community Center. I'm also a member of the branch. I serve on the executive board here as well as chairing the Economic Development Committee. And I had a question, but I wanted to start with a comment, just to create a context for the question, because Chief, I really appreciated your leadership and your comments. A few weeks ago, when Mayor Greenberg had the press conference about violent crime in our community and declared that it would be a top priority for his administration early on because of the concerns that we all feel around violence. And you made a comment about the culture of policing that you hope to instill, more of a community-oriented approach, which I appreciate. I think we welcome, because as I heard Mr. Burse bring up the concern for trust, and there's a real problem around trusting the police. And I want to say this, trust has to be earned. I think we all deserve to be respected. Respect should be granted, but trust has to be earned. And so I think there's a lot of work to be done within the police division, especially around the culture of policing, that will help to engender the kind of trust that we need to see. And I just wanted to give a little bit of perspective, because I had an opportunity in my previous career to do community-oriented policing, which I heard you talk about. This was a time that I administered housing authority policy, and we set up a program working with about 5 chiefs ago. At that time, Chief Doug Hamilton was at the helm, and some of you may remember him. I worked closely with Sergeant Pete Van Pelt, and you all know Sergeant Pete. He and some of the other officers, we set up a program called the HALO program, that's Housing Authority Liaison Officers. We had 17 officers that worked under that command, and they all reported to my office. And we had a lot of experience around that. But some of the anecdotes, I do remember that Yvette Gentry, former chief, was a rookie at that time. Richard Pearson was a rookie, Azell Jackson, many others. And I remember hosting our first training. You mentioned some training of the officers. We had a meeting of that team, and we made the point that we did not need those 17 officers to use the power of arrest as a first strategy to intervene in the public housing community. And we knew that there was problems, right? But the whole idea was we needed those officers to build relationships, positive relationships, working with the maintenance staff, the property management staff, the resident councils, the community centers, the Parks and Rec staff, building relationships. Because if you do that, then by proxy, you get the help from the community to maintain law and order. Nobody wants to have chaos in their community, but they don't trust you enough to be forthright and share with you the concerns unless they have a relationship with you. So I just wanted to suggest that as you continue to lead, I pray that you do become our chief, because I heard that coming out of your mouth, this vision for community-oriented policing, but it is going to take quite a bit of training. And I just want to say this in closing. We won't solve problems in our community around crime, especially violence, from outside the community. The police can't fix it. You can't bring in no consultants that can advise on it. It's not going to work. The solutions to the problems have to come from within the community. And I know that because I want to say to my associate, Michael Ballard, we work closely with him. He's the vice president of the California Neighborhood Federation. And we, through his leadership and others, hosting a cure violence project for the city, but targeting the California neighborhood. And I would say that if we don't lift up people like Michael and others that are on the ground every day in their respective neighborhood trying to improve it, they don't get the support and the positive relations from City Hall to the neighborhood, then we're gonna be dealing with this problem from now on. I just want to say that.
Thank you, sir.
Questions?
I have two. One is, I'm a survivor of gun violence, had 2 nieces murdered, and part of the moms of murdered sons and daughters. It's a continuing, questions in regards to how cases are covered and how many cold cases or cases do you have on file now. I know I have repeatedly called the head detective, and I'm always told we're working on it, or we don't have time, we don't have enough officers. So how many actually officers do work on murder cases? And what is the feedback with families? Because you have families dating back years and still no closure. So we need closure. They want people to come with information, and you have those to give information to detectives, and I've been told they don't follow up with that information. And then in regards, well, I'll let you answer that part.
But first of all, let me just say I'm sorry for the pain that you've experienced, because that's real, and I can just hear it within your voice. So you have that from me. I'm just sorry. So first, let me say this portion of it. As far as calling back the families and so forth, we get inundated with so many calls within the homicide unit. However, we are actually strategizing right now to make sure that we are embedding an additional person there in order to make sure that we can bridge some of that disconnect that you may be experiencing. And so with that, I'm hoping that you'll give me your information before we leave tonight in order for me, and hey, we have Lieutenant Aaron Kroll here who is over that division. Give him your information so that we can follow up with you. Because we want you to know if there's any new developments within your case without let me say this, without compromise. Are y'all understanding?
Yeah.
Without compromising the case. Because again, there's someone out there that has taken your loved one, then we need to do our due diligence and have a proper investigation to make sure that we hold that person accountable. But yes, ma'am, you will actually truly get a better response from us.
Thank you.
What's your second question?
And the second question is in regards in light of Trevon Nichols and what happened with him. LAPP have a special crime boots to the ground unit?
Yes, ma'am, we do. But guess what? We're doing it the right way. We're actually out here and we're policing the right way. Again, they lack in not quarterbacking Memphis and what they've done and however they proceeded. But again, we have proper supervision that are overseeing our people on a day-to-day basis. And so you have here Lieutenant Colonel Kroll here, who is a strong commander, who requires strong leadership to be engaged with his unit. See, anybody and those individuals, if you lack character, you would actually fall over them and actually do things that just erode the profession altogether. But when you have a strong leaders that actually know what their people are doing, then you will have those checks and balances in place. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're keeping all of our citizens safe. And so with that, we have to have those strong units who work every day. So many guns that we're taking, illegal guns taken off the street every single day. And with that, we must stay the course in order to make sure that we don't have even more victims. Ma'am.
I'm Charlotte Holloway, and President Cunningham has appointed me as the Health Committee Chair. And in my years of decades of nursing, first of all, I want to applaud you for having the mental health counseling. The counseling is really needed. Good mental health, great mental health. In different careers, even nursing, you have 31 new recruits. Or how many more? Right now, are you trying to recruit? You're gonna recruit another 30 or more?
Absolutely, our application process is never closed.
Okay.
You can actually sign up if you want to.
Not for nursing. But I think that's really important to know, and I want to applaud
Thank
that.
you. Please, everybody apply, everybody.
Question.
Well, I want to piggyback on what she just stated in regards to mental health. And we have so many homeless and people dealing with mental health, some part of Brown's mandate. Under that, they were saying they, rather than send an officer, the necessary social worker or a social worker with an officer to diffuse the situation. Is that still in place?
Yes, we have a deflection model, and so that deflection model is in certain divisions. And so it's working well, actually. When those calls come into 911 and if they're diverted to a social worker because that individual is having a mental health crisis, and then it goes to them in triage there and for them to respond. So again, we welcome that. We always wanted that. Guess what? We just didn't have it. When I came on many, many years ago, it just wasn't talked about aggressively. Law enforcement, we never wanted to be in that space. We just had to do it. And so now we're in this position to be able to do it, and we welcome that. So yes, ma'am, yes.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, my name is Max. That deflection program you were just speaking of, is there a prediction or hypothesis when that would then start in the other divisions?
I will get that information to you, Maxwell, on that, but we're happy that it's in division, first division, second, fourth, and sixth. So we're excited about that, and again, that's outsourced to 7 counties. And so how they build that out to be robust to the other divisions, we totally welcome that. And guess what is so needed? In law enforcement, we can never go back to not having that. And so I'm just grateful that we have it on play, and the officers welcome it.
I didn't get to my question. Let me speak. Are there any other questions before we repeat?
I have a question.
Where? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Thanks so much, Chief, for being here. Just really so proud of what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback with my colleague, my nursing colleague here, Jacquelyn. I'm a recently retired nurse practitioner. And having worked with families who have had victims of violence, we know that this is a public health crisis.
Yes, it is.
So we want to know if the police department is also partnering with healthcare providers on this issue. I know the Future Healers and Prison for Two Legs that they are doing some things for children, and we are members of our local nurse practitioner, our local nursing association, Guyana, which is the local chapter of the National Black Nursing Association. We're not utilized very much. Most people don't know that we even exist. And there is such a need for people to know that this is a health crisis. This community is grieving. This is a grief issue. My sister over there, she's suffering. She's grieving.
She is here.
Yeah, and so the mourning, the grief that's taken care of, that's not being taken care of, we know that policing needs to be a big part of what we're doing, but we also need to partner with healthcare.
Thank you. I'll let you get your information because we do have a robust victim witness unit. And so I can see how that would marry in order to help springboard into something. So this is what this is about, broader concern. And now I think we can actually move forward in getting an additional solution to that. And so I'm working you, Pearl. So that's what we shot to. That's why they're here with me. So you'll get your information because I can just see how that can just interconnect and work so perfectly. But also too, guess what? You'll be helping some families, but if we need to tap you for an officer that needs some assistance with their family. You see how now we're getting this, again, another level of a holistic approach in which we want in order to serve the many people. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
My name is Michael Ballard. I'm Vice President of California Federation. I want to address 2 issues, and one of them being trust and accountability. If me and 3 of my friends are together, and we stop at the store. One of those friends go in there and do something wrong. If we knew it, or if we didn't know it. But when that friend come out and jump in the car, if that friend is excited to holler, pull out, pull out, pull out, pull out. If I put myself in that position right this minute, the very first thought that comes to my mind is not that he went in there and did something wrong. What's going on in my mind is I'm concerned with my safety. The purpose of that scenario is the position that I put myself in, what that person did. I can be held accountable. Now here's where the trust issue come in at. I've been searched within a block of my house at least 100 times, probably more. Probably more, with them knowing who I am. I'm not discussing or mentioning the officer that did it because that ain't what's important. What is important is all the officers that stood around and allowed him to do it. I know how hard this is because I have to do it in my community. It's hard to check your buddy. It's hard to check your family member. But you're not their friend if you're not. It's easy, it appears, for somebody who's in an argument with somebody, the friendship is measured by here's a gun. Friendship is measured by now, stop. So to get to the point is that you can't say one thing and do another. You can't tell me that you represent law and order, but do not practice it against me. You violate my rights. So now I'm looking at you, and I'm clearly saying, no, it don't work like that. I don't follow that. So the key to it, if you treat me with respect, I'm going to treat you with respect. But it's hard for me to call somebody for help that's already mistreated me to get on somebody else that is mistreating me. Then the second part I'm going to respond to is the violence. And somebody said something about whose job it is. Yes, it's the police's job to lock people up once that crime has been committed. If we keep that approach, we're gonna be like Chicago this summer. We're gonna be just like Chicago this summer. If my child is doing something wrong, then it's my job to deal with it. And yes, they are mad, they are angry, plenty of them, hundreds of them, at least a third of them. And they're angry for a legitimate reason. The reason they're mad and angry in this violence, what they're mad about is legitimate. The actions that they've taken is where the problem's at. What they're mad about is they've been abandoned by everybody on all levels. And in my neighborhood, one of the just a big report California neighborhoods, one of the things we say is, can't help me clean my house if you ain't cleaned your own. And as far as the little kids of all ages, they learn way faster than what you think. Ain't nothing they ain't got over on them. They see. And if you young, you've been seeing it, but let's just say you get about 10 years old, where you can really understand. And it's Christmas. But you ain't got nothing, huh? And you think, where's mine at? So, it takes a community, and I do mean the whole community, to turn this around, to have an impact, and it's gonna take every single agency that exists. They don't have to come up with new ideas and new minds. But please let me finish with this. If the solution is lock them up, that's gonna compound the problem 10 times. Because anytime you take that route, somebody else step in. Because it's a void, vacuum's been created. And then when them people come back out, they're still my territory. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. And we're all caught up in it. It ain't a single parent that don't wonder or worry or hope when their kid go out the house everywhere. Period. You know, from a straight bullet, not from what the kid is doing. So, I got off, but let me get to the point. How is that branch gonna be broke? How do we, is the police willing to do what they're asking the people to do?
Holding each other accountable, intervening, seeing bad behavior, calling it out, and addressing it? Absolutely.
Don't forget what we did today.
We've got about 8 more minutes. Please make it in the form of a question.
Ron.
I see.
I want to hold off on the WHS, but I want to make sure you all get your questions in. But I figured while you're sitting up there, if you have time, I'll ask questions.
Okay. Ron, and then the reporter.
Community policing seems to be a key component. What are some specifics that you all are doing and that we should be looking for with community policing that you all are doing?
All right, so again, going back to the Youth Advisory Council, again, they have robust ideas. They wanted to do last year a field day with officers themselves and the community. That was huge. We had a huge turnout for that. That was community building. That was really robust within its nature, and for the very first one. And they were working and they were engaging, and so many officers came out, and we were a part of that, and it was a beautiful thing. Then you also, too, as I mentioned before, the conversations and cuts, getting that started back again this year. We had like 4 sessions that we did last year, just getting our feet wet, but actually going into the barber shops and having those very organic conversations. You'll be seeing that. But also, too, you'll be seeing more of us doing more of these community forums and actually having officers and the community engaging one another. But it's also, too, about our managers, our majors in the divisions, being more intentional about setting up their meetings and having that engagement with the citizens within their purview, within their area. But again, community policing, for what it looks like for Louisville, we cannot measure ourselves against somewhere else, because Louisville is unique. When I came along, we had housing projects. So we had that officer that was going to that same housing project every day. So again, they were intertwining and actually getting in another community. Now we gotta look at things a little bit different. So how do we open our doors and have the community to come in more and have those conversations? You need to look at that, but also too, look on our website. You'll see more of that engaging. This is where LNP is gonna be. You're invited, come in. But we gotta be thoughtful in it. We gotta be intentional. And one thing that we can't do, and I think it's one of those things that speaks volumes, the community, I urge you, we're getting tired of things starting and stopping. It needs to be consistency. When we start something, let it be consistent. And so that community can actually be involved and actually bring issues and concerns and then walk away with solutions. But it's consistent dialogue and engagement. We need to be more in our churches.
Right, are you doing anything with the church?
In the churches, we need to be more in our churches.
So are there programs that you're doing? Can you talk about some of them?
We're gonna be doing more in our churches as far as making sure that officers, I'm encouraging them, I even brought up in one of my comps that we need to actually have officers like I used to do and actually go to church and just stand on the back of the wall and just be there and present, right? That gives the community, that gives the churches, hey, a sense of safety as well, but also too, the officers in there. And I did on the radio station and said, well, hopefully they keep going, they give tithes and offering by the time they keep going, right? Yeah. They keep going long enough, they give offering. Yeah. That's what I used to do. But it's also too, sharing that, but that's what I used to do. But that's a part of community, building those relationships. So you will see more of that. And again, with me developing my own clergy forum, that you will see. But it's just, it is open, it's diverse within all of the clergy, bringing them in and having those, that courageous conversation, that dialogue that is needed, so that they can actually tell their parishioners. There's power behind the bookboard. You know, the preacher is one of the most influential, powerful individuals that you can have within your community. And so we'll be utilizing that. So you'll be seeing me. Actually, you have been seeing me in the community and showing up and popping up everywhere. So that's what you'll see. But it starts from me. Starts from me. Starts from the leadership on down. And then you'll see it trickle down. So those are some of the things you're seeing and that you will be seeing. And I'm very optimistic about it. And my team has truly embraced it. We have an international college that is happening, where various individuals that are just from all over this great world are in that class. That's huge. That's huge. We've never had that before. Never. But now we have it because we have a strong equity diversity manager who can brainstorm those events. That's wonderful for us. So those are how we're reaching the community. And guess what? Some of them want to be police officers just because of the in the next session.
WTS.
I have a few questions. We've been covering the police shooting from last night. We spoke with Mayor Krigensburg earlier. He said that he's urging KSP to release the body cam footage, and so are you. Just wanted to know what your thoughts are about that process. We know it got turned over in 2020. KSP is responsible for that. And we know the timeline can vary, and it can vary from what people want. So what are your thoughts about that?
I respect the process for what it is for right now. If we need to review it, and that's going to be on the mayor to review it, and for us to come together and make a decision on that. But right now, for where it is, we respect that process and letting KSP handle the investigation, allow it to be a thorough investigation. And I know that the community wants to make sure that it's done just like that. And so we respect their process. And that's where we're standing on that. We can't make any further comments on what happened, but I can say that the individual that was involved in that shooting last night is in stable condition. And I think you probably already got that information, but nonetheless, we want the process to play out so the community can be satisfied with what is yield when the results are there, and the investigation is complete.
And you know, just more generally, do you want to urge KSP to move quicker with releasing body cam footage in general, or is that something that you all are going to the drawing board and talking about right now?
We'll be in discussions about it, but I don't want to compromise anything, even what we're discussing in general. But again, I'll just stick firm to that. We'll just respect the process and KSP handling the investigation. And when they deem necessary and appropriate to release that video footage, whatever time frame it is, then we'll respect that. Yes, ma'am.
And earlier I was discussing with the Measure Council President the parallels, of course, with wanting that third party, because in 2020 people demanded more transparency, not having LMPD investigate itself, so turn it over to KSP. But now we see people talking about the timeline is different because you're talking about a state agency. So can you talk about those parallels, that checks and balances, and what may be working and what may not be working at this time, and how you all may rectify that?
Well, the community at that point, because we were in such a tense, critical state at that point, and I wasn't even here, and that was prior to my arrival in 2021. And so the powers that be at that time making that decision felt that that was the best decision for this agency. So again, I respect that process. But when the community wanted more transparency and make sure that LMPD was not interfering with anything, then we're here. We're here right now. And so we're going to respect that process And if it needs to be adjusted, I'm sure we'll make the best decision for not only LMPD or KSP, but guess what, for the community.
And the last question, again, speaking with that same person, the council president, he didn't go as far as to say it should be back in, you all's hands, of course, but did talk about that and talked about transparency at the head can make a difference. It's not all the difference, but it can make a difference. And with you and Mayor Craig Greenberg's commitment and being open about how transparent you all want to be, do you think people will be receptive if you all would consider re-evaluating and taking those cases again instead of sending them to KSP?
I think we would have to hear from the community as a whole and really hear, truly hear, is there an appetite for that? Really hear from that, because at the end of the day, the community wants to be heard. And you will see from myself and Mayor Greenberg, we want to always listen to the community and hear with a clear ear, making sure that we're making the best decision. So if it does come back to LMPD and we're actually working the officer involved shooting, again, you will have that transparency there. You will have the communication to be clear as to what we're doing, how we're doing it, so there won't be any misnomer as to where we are and what we're doing as an agency. So you will have that. And so I welcome any changes that's going to truly benefit everybody collectively.
One final question before you get out of here.
Okay.
The rumor's been running around the city, beginning back in December, that a draft of the DOJ report is in the city of Louisville. You have any knowledge of any of that?
No, if you find it, let me know.
We're looking for it.
It's not.
We're searching.
Yeah, it's not. So we don't have any knowledge of it. We're waiting like everyone else for the report to come out. But again, we're not waiting for its arrival. We're just trying to do better as an agency and move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
One thing I would like to say quickly is that I'm the membership chair for this grant. Would you like to become a member?
It sounds mighty nice. But also too, I want to open the door for you. The next time we're doing our background and recruitment effort, I need you all to set up a table. And so when the folks come in and sign up to be a police officer, they can also sign up if they so desire to join NAACP. And I think that'll be a great partnership. It'll be a strong community effort. So I want to just put that out there to you, that I'm opening that door.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank the chief and her staff for being with us. She's been up here for 55 minutes. I'd like to invite them to go back and get to release some funds. And we thank you. Feel free to stay, or if you're going to leave.
Thank you, Chair. Her information.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you do nothing else,
If you do nothing else.
if you do nothing else,
If you do nothing else.
if you do nothing else,
If you do nothing else.